Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Well, today we are going to be discussing the aftermath of the coronavirus, which we don't even really know yet, but there's a lot of predictions going around. One of the things that people are talking about is a civil war, possibly going on somehow, maybe not like it did in the 1800s in America, but some type of civil uprising in the United States. And will the United States survive it? Also, are we going to be seeing the breaking up of the United States? Are some states going to maybe secede or leave? What's going to happen there? We're also going to talk about the future of the Jewish people who are still living in the exile and the very urgent importance of making aliyah. Aliyah literally means to go up in a spiritual way, usually. And that's what it means in this sense, where you would move to Israel. You would be going up to Israel, up to Jerusalem. So we'll be talking about that. That's what the smart Jews will be doing. They will be making aliyah. And the question, will Israel have a new government? As you know, an agreement was signed between the left and the right, headed by the left headed by Benny Gantz and the right headed by, or the center right headed by Netanyahu. And now the Supreme Court is sticking its nose in, and they may try to put a stop to a government led by Netanyahu. So we're going to be talking about all of these things. This is a live show. If you're listening between 4 to 5 p.m. Holy Time right here in the land of Israel, or if it's between 9 to 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Sunday. So if you'd like to weigh in on the issue, if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you agree, if you disagree, we would like to hear from you. This is a live show. We do this so we can have interaction with you out there in Radio Land. We love to listen to you. So feel free to join us on the air. Our numbers are on our homepage at israelnewstalkradio.com. So we have a very interesting show ahead. By the way, I'm a grandmother. Again, last night, another grandchild born to us. We are so thrilled, so blessed. Thank you, everybody. We'll be right back.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Biblical.
Be beautiful.
Wear your crown.
Wrapping is my crown.
Do what married Jewish women have been doing for thousands of years. Celebrate the art of head wrapping. I'm Andrea Grinberg from Rapunzel.com. We have beautiful scarves, stunning accessories, scarves for faith, scarves for healing, and scarves for fun. Rapunzel.com. That's Rapunzel with a W. Or click on our banner on the Israel News Talk Radio homepage.
Rapunzel.com. Beautiful scarves, stunning accessories paired with tutorials, support, and a vibrant community to give you everything you need to start and perfect your head covering journey.
Don't forget, join the Rapunzel community group on Facebook to see, learn, and share your beautiful wraps. That's Rapunzel with a W on Facebook.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
Get 10% off your purchase with promo code RADIO. Go now to Rapunzel.com.
So we have a packed show for you today. So many things to discuss. And one of them is what is going on now with the United States. There's a question. People are writing about a possible civil war, perhaps not like what we saw in the 1800s, but in some other way. Can the United States survive with what's going on, and the possibility of a coming breakup of the U.S.? Will some states say that they're just not going to listen to Washington, that they're perhaps even going to secede? I don't know. We're going to talk about aliyah, and we're going to talk about the new government here in Israel. Are we going to even have one, or will we be forced to go to fourth elections because of the Supreme Court putting its nose in what's happening between the agreement between Gantz and Netanyahu? All of this is going to be talked about with our guest, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem. He's a researcher, former lecturer at Ben-Gurion University. He's authored over 70 books and 400 research papers on science, history, and more. He commentates on Mideastern world issues. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So where would you like to start? I've seen things, people writing op-eds about a coming civil war going to be happening in America. I see headlines like this. I kind of think, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the National Enquirer, like alarmists and things like that. But what do you see happening?
First of all, I think there is a civil war in the United States. I don't think it's a coming thing. I think it's a thing that exists now. There are more than a third of the states of the United States. The largest reason why people die is what's called substance abuse. That is to say, drugs and alcohol. That means the social framework of the United States is breaking up, or has broken up in many, many places. And what we see in New York, with tens of thousands of dead people from the coronavirus, while in a place like California, which superficially at least is much less organized than New York, they are in much better shape medically. We look at the Democratic Party. The best they have to offer is a guy like Biden, a person who has made his entire career as simply someone who represents stupidity and amorality. I mean, at least Clinton was immoral. Biden is amoral. He doesn't even know what morality means.
I'm not so sure if he knows.
That's frightening.
I'm not sure if he knows what anything means. He seems to be a bit senile. I don't know, but
you're not the only one who says that. I've heard that from many people. He rambles, but he's been like that for the last 10 years.
But, it seems a little bit like it's anybody but Trump, just like here in Israel, the left has been doing anybody but Bibi.
That's sort of true, but remember at the beginning of the process, they had something like 17 or 18 people running, all of whom were pathetic. That's that's sad.
Okay, so what do you see happening? Is there going to be some type? A civil war. When people think about that, they think of people picking up arms and weapons and actually going out to fight.
But people are picking up arms. 2,000 people die every year in Chicago alone.
But that's criminal. That's not because of the government.
That's the definition. If some portion of the population is shooting at another portion of the population, that is normally defined as a civil war. Now, if this is happening in Chicago and Detroit and Washington and Baltimore and I don't know how many other cities, I have a friend who lives in Massachusetts, in the western part of Massachusetts. There's a town there called Springfield, 120,000 people. It has a horrendous statistic in terms of people shot every year. It's not a tremendous city like Chicago of 2 million people. It's 120,000 people, and people are dying in the streets there.
All right. So what do you see happening?
I'm leery of making predictions. I'm looking at what's going on. I'm looking at a national debt which is costing the taxpayer now in America $500 billion just servicing the debt every year. How long can that go on? The United States has had more than 30 years of fiscal irresponsibility.
Okay, but we're getting better with Trump.
Economically, there's just no way to trivially fix that.
Okay, but things were getting better with Trump.
Yes, they were, but the debt was not going down. I mean, they had many more people, many more people that were employed. They had a lot of industry was returning to the United States that had been driven out by Clinton and by Obama. But that was only 3 years. So and the coronavirus has caused a lot of that to recede. We don't know for how long. If some of that may be more permanent or less permanent, more temporary, we don't know. What I'm saying is that we're seeing a lot of various different data points that are very troubling. And what sort of gave me a shot in the arm the other day was I saw an article by a very leading rabbi in the United States telling the Jews there to flee.
Right. I saw that also. Yes. Well, listen, America, I mean, we love America, but the people, or I should say the West, because it's not just America. In Europe, too, it's a bloody continent. It could be a very violent culture. I mean, for all of the nice talk that they say, they talk about peace and living together and tolerance. When you get down to it, they could be very bloody when their pocketbooks are played with, etc. And I'm wondering what's going to go on with if people really take a hit from these closures.
You're absolutely correct. The American culture, for better or for worse, and you're right. I mean, the American there's an enormous amount to be admired about America, but that doesn't mean that we have to close our eyes and ignore the data. And the American culture has a lot of things that are very admirable, and it has a lot of things that are very troubling. And violence is clearly one of them. There's an enormous amount of violence in the streets.
Okay, but let's look at the positive side, though. Let's say that Trump wins the election. He really gets the economy going again. He's very good at it. He improved the economy the last 4 years or 3.5 years he's been in office. What would set off a civil war, as you say, or the possibility of a coming breakup of the United States?
Well, there are a lot of things that could happen. One of them is economic. The Congress has already passed a $3 trillion extra budget for the coronavirus issue. That goes right to the debt. And if the debt was already $24 trillion, that means that debt has grown and will continue to grow, and the cost of servicing the debt will continue to grow. And that is a cost that the taxpayers today can no longer afford. They can no longer afford services like Medicare and Medicaid and the various social welfare things that are there. All of these so-called legacy systems that have been in place for some of them for decades. That their costs constantly increase, and there's no way to stop them. So, if that's true, this data that I'm seeing,
did I lose you?
There was a recent GAO report, a Government Accountability Office report, warning that these things are totally getting out of hand. It's not just me saying it. These are some of the best auditors in the world. I've worked with them in the past. Then there's a big economic problem or big economic issue standing above the United States that people are not taking sufficiently seriously.
Okay, let's talk about China, because I have a feeling, I could be wrong, but ever since I saw President Trump talking at the podium and calling the coronavirus, the China virus, I was thinking, oh my, I wonder if he's going to try to sue the Chinese government for reparations for all it's going to cost Americans for being out of work, for the closures, the shutdowns. And China's probably not going to want to pay. This could, God forbid, lead to a war. But maybe in Trump's mind, it'll be that, well, they'll have to forgive the debt that America owes China because of it as reparations. I mean, do you see any legitimacy in that, or am I way off track here?
I don't think you're way off track, but I think you're slightly off track. I think that there's an issue here of definitions. China is clearly a competitive rival, and they act like a competitive rival. They're a very strong competitor. There's a difference, though, between China and Iran. Iran is an implacable enemy, not a rival. And Iran is selling the vast majority, either directly or indirectly, of the drugs that are on the streets of the United States. So Iran is at least as large a danger to the United States, to the social structure of the United States, to the social viability of the United States, as is China. China is a danger to the United States economy, but not to the social structure. So you have
hang on there. We have to go to a break
here, and they're not trivial.
Okay, hang on. We have to go to a break. When we get back, we'll be talking more about this and also aliyah, and will Israel have a new government or not? Is it fourth elections? We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we're going to change direction here. We're going to jump across the pond and look at what is happening here in Israel right now. Israel's also fighting with the coronavirus. We're also trying to build a government. We've had 3 elections inside of a year and a half, and we may have to go even to a 4th election, even though an agreement was signed between the left and the right Knesset members in Israel where they were able to make a government, albeit some people are saying it's a very corrupt government. In other words, it's a lot of, pay, bribery. We'll give you lots of government seats, come with us, and it's costing a lot of money, but still the people are tired, and even though they can't stand the waste of money, a lot of people say we just want a government because if we go to 4th elections, it's also a waste of money. And the Supreme Court may be sticking, the Supreme Court is sticking its nose in, and it's having sessions now to see whether they are going to let Netanyahu continue as the prime minister because of the bribery, etc., charges against him. So what say you, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem?
Well, I think people should be, anyone who has access to it should read the article written by Gideon Sar. I think it was on Friday in Israel Hayom.
Tell people who Gideon Sar is, they may not know.
Gideon Sar is a former minister in the government. He was Netanyahu's primary rival from within the Likud. He was recently defeated in a bid to compete with Netanyahu, but he's sort of the left side of the Likud. He's not quite as far right as some of the other people. And the interesting thing here is that he wrote an article. He's always been very, very strongly in favor of independent judiciary, et cetera, and he wrote an article saying that the courts are drunk on their power, and they're making decisions which have no relevancy either to the laws or to the people. And coming from him is what makes this article so very powerful. So you're asking me, what do I think the courts are going to do? The courts are going to do whatever they bloody well feel like, and that is exactly the definition of the problem.
But can they?
Yes, they can.
Tell our listeners how.
What has happened is there was a balance between the various branches of government, just as the balance was disturbed in over the last few decades in the United States. The balance was disturbed over the last few decades here in Israel as well. Except here it's much stronger because the method for choosing judges on the courts is they're chosen basically by the judges that already sit on the court, which is basically a corrupt structure. But that's just the way it's done. And the left has been extremely vehement in preventing any changes, any substantial changes. Now, Ayelet Shaked tried to make some changes, and she made a few changes, but they're mostly cosmetic and not really all that significant. She didn't really succeed. She can claim that she didn't have enough time to succeed, and that's certainly possible. You can't change in 3 years something that's been done over 30 years. It's very difficult. But nonetheless, the way judges are chosen is not democratic. It's not intelligent, and it is entirely based upon agenda. And the court can do whatever it pleases because there is no checks and balances upon the courts, and that is a significant problem. And some members of the Knesset have proposed is a change to the basic law for the judiciary be formulated such that rulings of the courts can be overridden by the elected representatives, by the Knesset. And I think that's a very wise thing that should happen because otherwise the courts just are running amok.
Can you give us in 1 minute a quick scenario of it going either way and what we might be looking at?
Well, if they vote down this coalition proposal, then we go to a fourth election. That's clear because the president defined it that way, and that's his prerogative. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, if they allow it to go through, they may allow it to go through in principle while shooting down certain paragraphs in the agreement, which would then mean that the agreement would have to be reformulated on those issues, and it's not clear if it can be done before the time is up that the president has allocated. So we're in a very, very iffy situation. We're really at the so-called 11th hour before going to a fourth election.
Okay. What would happen if we went to a fourth election and we still came up in a stalemate like we have been?
Nobody knows. If it comes up and see what's really fascinating is that the latest polls have given the Likud itself, if it's run by Netanyahu, more than 40 seats, which is almost unprecedented. Which means that he would not need blue and white to form a government. He can do it with his own party and the so-called right and religious parties with no additional members. But we should also mention, if we're talking about the parties and things like that, that the party that basically began the state, the so-called Mapai or the Labor Party, has disappeared. It's died. There's nothing left anymore.
That's like, I want our listeners to understand, it's like the Republican or Democratic Party dying. It's something that's been something throughout the beginning of the state or the beginning of the country, and you had it no more. All right, let's go. We only have another 3 minutes left to the show. Aliyah, you want to talk about Aliyah, and that means for Jews moving to Israel from the diaspora. What do you want to say?
Well, if the things we said in the previous session are correct, that these issues in the United States, not necessarily talking in stark terms like war, but we're talking about the substance abuse issues, the violence in the streets. We're talking about basic collapse of major portions of the healthcare system in the United States, whether it be what we're seeing in New York or what we're seeing in terms of Medicare and Medicaid. And we're talking about a lot of other issues. Even if it doesn't go to something extreme like actual breakup of states, which I believe is a possibility, it's a significant possibility. I wouldn't say it's obvious, but I think it is a very significant possibility. Jews need to begin to think. Jews in America need to begin to think differently. They need to begin to think not, is it a nice idea to move to Israel, but do we need to start planning to flee?
So you think it's going to be that bad?
Oh, I'm certain that if these things actually do occur, it will be that bad. But I'm saying, again, if these things do actually occur, we're seeing tremendous issues in economics, the national debt, and et cetera, the violence in the streets, the drugs, the alcoholism. We're seeing breakup of society. We're seeing a lot of really significant issues in terms of anti-Semitism, blatant, violent anti-Semitism. We're seeing a lot of issues today that we have not seen for the last 100 years in the United States.
All right, so what do you want to leave us with? We have 2 minutes.
I think that people need to start giving very, very serious thought to thinking differently. Coming to Israel, had they been thinking about coming to Israel when I came here in the 60s, that was a legitimate question. Israel was a tiny country, pre-backward, very difficult. That's not the case today. The standard of living here is higher than in the United States. The life expectancy is higher than in the United States. A Jew that moves to here from the United States statistically adds 5 years to his lifespan. That's not really trivial.
I think that the Jewish people, like any patient who has a recurring disease in their family, you know that you have a propensity towards diabetes or breast cancer or whatever it is, that those people know it and they look for the signs and then they take precautions. And I think that the Jewish people need to look back at our history, see what we have been suffering from the anti-Semitism, how it starts in many cases, not all the time, sometimes it starts from different cases, but to know, be aware, and to take precautions and to do something, and that is to move. That is to move. And Israel is prospering. We are going through this like everybody else, but I think Israel's handled the coronavirus pretty well. And we still are leaders in technology, agriculture, water desalination, technology, etc. We have a bright future here. We are growing, and this is the future. I think that Israel really is going to be the future.
I agree.
One last word?
Again, I think that people need to start thinking very differently from what they've been doing till now.
Okay, that's it.
I think that's sufficient. I mean, if you go, we can't go into details on a general level. Anyone wants to contact me and ask me specific questions, I'll be more than happy to help.
Okay, so give out your email.
My email is very, very easy to remember. The word quality @ACM Apple Computer Mordechai.org.
All righty, you can email him directly and have a conversation with Mordechai. Thank you for being with us, Mordechai. When we get back, we're going to be having on Shifra Hoffman for our Jewish activism segment, so don't go anywhere.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentako, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany is but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
Alrighty, we are getting Shifra Hoffman on the phone. In the meantime, I'll tell you something personal that went on in my life, and that was yesterday, right after the Sabbath ended. Because if you're a Torah observant Jew, we do not use our devices on the Sabbath, on Shabbat, and so we turn off our phones and our computers, etc. And we are concentrating on our families, concentrating on God, on ourselves, on our lives, and our celebrating the Sabbath with a nice meal, and nice clothes, etc. And we got wonderful, wonderful news that a grandson was born to the family. And I am a grandmother, thank God, 3 times over.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi there. So, Shifra, you wanted to talk about?
Oh, there's a lot to talk about, right? But I stick to my guns because not me, but this is the reason we came back to Eretz Israel with God's help in 1948. It says that God will take us out from all the nations in order to show the world that he is our God. And we have only one deity here. It's not the UN. It's not Trump. It's the Torah. We were given the Torah. We should be a liar to the nations. And unfortunately, a lot of people think they can do what they want. And then it's not good. We are looking forward to getting the blessings, not the curse. And unfortunately, the corona is a terrible curse.
Yes, it is. And we're all home, and we're all trying to figure out, what we should be doing. I'm hearing your voice, Shifra. You sound very tired, or like you're in pain. We're praying for your health.
Yeah,
we know that you are.
But I've not been so well lately. But I feel that the people who listen to you and you listen to me and contact us, they deserve to hear what the truth is. So we try.
Yeah, yes, indeed. All right. So what would you like to say? I mean, with all that's going on in the news today, what do you want to talk about?
Really and truly to study. There are a lot of Jews. They did a study now about how corona affects the spiritual side of people. And mostly it affects a lot of non-Jews. They say only 7% of American Jews felt that they should change their ways. But that's not the right way. The Torah wants the Jews to be the leaders. I often tell my audiences, on Rosh Hashanah, we have all the cinnamon on the table, certain carrots and grapes, and everything has a significance. And then we have to eat the head of a fish. Why? Because we're supposed to be the head and not the tail. But unfortunately, we've become a lot of, condescending to what is not good for us. For instance, the EU, the European Union. What business is there of them to tell us whether we can build a Judea and Samaria? It's not their fun. And they go out all the time to say, warning us that we should. Now that
Shifra, we're losing
hopefully
you.
Will stop, that the leaders should be strong and react like leaders and not like the tail of the fish.
So you're saying that Israel should be sovereign and act like a sovereign country, and that's true. And it's interesting, Shifra, because I was interviewed on a radio show in the United States on I think it was Thursday evening or Wednesday evening, and he was asking me about whether Israel should annex the West Bank, and I said, I want to liberate the occupied East Bank of the Jordan, because the East Bank of the Jordan was where the tribes, the Israelite tribes of Reuben, half of Manasseh, and Gad were. That's Jewish land. That's part of the land of Israel. And everyone's talking about some so-called West Bank when that's Judea and Samaria. Those are the legal names as well as biblical names. There is no official name West Bank anywhere. And we have to look past all of this talk that has gotten us nowhere and look at what is correct, what is legal, and what is rightful.
First of all, Tamar, I believe, and I think that anybody that studies someone would know, there's no such thing as illegal in the land of Israel. God Almighty gave it all to us, not 20 countries like the Arabs have. We have one, and it's all ours. So we shouldn't say area A, B, C. There's no reason to give up one edge. Also, I think it's very important to understand that they will never agree to anything completely under Israel's control. They say now after Corona, there'll be such a terrible magaifa, a terrible plague of increasing anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitism has increased by itself without Corona. But what's happening now is that they're looking to pin it upon the Jews. I don't know if you saw it was on the Root Shabbat, they quoted me, that a minister, I think his name was Wiles something, died in the war as I said. He says the reason that we have Corona is because the Jews didn't accept Jesus. So I wrote, according to your perverted theory, how about the ones, non-Jews who got the Corona? Is it because they accepted Jesus? Why do you blame Jews for not accepting Jesus? We have the right to believe the way we want, but that's what there's no rationale with somebody that hates. That has proven during the Holocaust. So Jews should start to be strong Jews and stop looking over their shoulder. And above all, pick up and pack up and come here. It's noted now that Israel was the safest country for the Corona because they started earlier and the lockdown and all the other methods seem to work. I'm not a great fan of Bibi's politics, but I have to say that he has done a magnificent job in trying to save Jews here, and I think they should stop persecuting him.
Yes, indeed. All right, Shifra, it sounds like you are not really feeling so well, but I know that people love you and they want to write to you or be in contact with you. How can they do that?
Yeah, they can always write me care of the email, hoffmanschiffer@gmail.com. My voice is a little bit weak, but I try to be strong, and I know you have a strong voice too, thank God. Look, the truth will never be buried forever. Somebody once wrote, truth, as rare a commodity as it is, the supply is always greater than the demand. But we need truth. Truth is what the Torah is based on. And I'm sick and tired. There's a group here in Israel called Israel Today. They are missionary Jews, Messianic Jews. They masquerade as somebody on behalf of Israel. And they constantly try to convert Jews to believe in Jesus and in the the Torah. You cannot. You either are a Jew fully or you're not. But not say...
Shifra, you're drowning out on us, so I'm going to, I don't know, for some reason the connection is not good, but if anybody wants to write Shifra, they can do so. Her email is hoffmanshifra@gmail.com. Again, that's
And they also can order my book, which I feel, not because I wrote it, but according to the reviews, people think it's really good, and your review is included in it, Tamar. So if they want to write to me or to you, we will try to fill the order, God willing.
Amen. All right. And that's right. If you want to order her book, if you don't have Shifra's email or if you couldn't get through for some reason, you can always write me and I will forward everything to her.
It's called Ask Not Why My People, and it's dedicated to my people. But mostly, the first page is dedicated to the God of Israel who helped me through every triumph and tragedy throughout my unbelievable life.
And you should stay well and healthy. Thank you very much, Shifra Hoffman, everybody. And again, if you want to get her book, feel free to contact me, and I will forward any information to her that I can. All right. So Israel now is still, at this time of this broadcast, we're still looking to see what the Supreme Court is going to decide. They say, let me just read this very quickly from Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com. They're saying here that the Supreme Court is hearing petitions against Prime Minister Netanyahu forming a government. Hearings against Netanyahu forming a government coalition deal begin today. Attorney representing the AG says election results must be honored. So this is going to be now a butting heads between the people of Israel, who they voted into the Knesset, and letting them try to build a government, or the Supreme Court coming in saying, no, we are not going to let Netanyahu lead any government, even though the people of Israel voted for the Likud, even though the Likud party got the majority of votes of all the other parties. And this is very, very interesting. Also a very interesting picture where everybody in the Supreme Court is sitting there wearing masks because of the coronavirus. All right. So interesting things happening here. I don't know what's going to happen. But I do believe that in the end, it's all going to be good. Why? Because if you are a Bible-believing person, you know in the end it's all going to be good. And so therefore anything that's leading us to that, it may be a rough ride, it may hurt, it may be very bumpy, but in the end we're getting to our destination, and that is to a better world. And as I've said in my past shows, I do not want, after the coronavirus is more or less gone and the governments around the world have lifted restrictions, I do not want it to be that we go back to quote-unquote normal, because normal wasn't so great. Normal was a world that was corrupt in many ways, a world where people were running after money and labels and to have the right address and the right status symbols, and running after fame and running after money, and that we should come to a place where we understand and appreciate and strive for the things that really matter. Because when we go to our graves, we're not going to be taking our money with us. But what do they say to us when we die? They don't say, oh, he made this much money, or she's got this much money in her bank account. They say all the good things that we did, that we volunteered for this organization, that we helped people, that we were always with a smile, that we made such good apple pies, I don't know, that made people happy. These are the things, family and appreciating our lives and our Creator, and the things that are really important, our children, our grandchildren. I'm speaking from experience now, having some grandchildren. Thank God I've been very blessed. And the things that are really important. You know, people are dying from the coronavirus, and people have lost their livelihoods from the coronavirus. So when we come out of it, let's have a better world, one that shows people what's really important. That's what we strive for. You've been listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Thanks for being with us.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.